everybody, and welcome back to the recap for Fallcon Day 2. I've already done a recap on the Day 1. Day 2 went from 9 o'clock in the morning till 11:30 at night, and I was there for the whole time. And it was great. I did end up volunteering in the afternoon, and during my volunteer shift on Day 2, I was helping in the open gaming area. So basically, I just kind of went around, helped people pick games or teach them rules if they didn't know how to play the game, or basically just assist with that. And then I also took tons of pictures of all the games I wasn't playing, but it's just neat to see all the games that are being played, and a lot of games that have been played, and a lot of great games and great looking games. It was really neat. Now at Fallcon, while I was there, I got to meet the Cardboard Kid, and that was exciting. So I follow the Cardboard Kid. She has her own YouTube channel, so I do recommend that you go ahead and follow her as well. She does really neat videos, like tutorial videos. So she talks about the different games from like a kid's point of view. There was a game that I got recently that it was her videos that I had watched to kind of learn how to play the game, and she does an amazing job. So it's just kind of cool to see her. She's like, "Oh yeah, I run a YouTube channel. It's called the Cardboard Kid." I was like, "I follow you." So I ended up taking a picture with her, just because I'm a fan. So it was neat. And then we got to play some games. So the first game that I ended up playing that day was Framework. I played Nova Luna at Gobfest, and I really enjoyed it. They're going around, selecting the different tiles, putting it, trying to create these connections. But it is difficult to find. So I have not found Nova Luna, but this one just recently came out, and it's kind of part of the trilogy. So it has similar mechanism. And I bought my copy. This was actually my friend's copy that she had brought, and we ended up playing it. And it's so cool. So it plays very similar. So you'll put the tiles down. Now in this one, you have your, like, the number in the middle is kind of what your request is. So for example, the one there where it has a yellow 3, that means this tile wants to be connected to a cluster of 3 yellow frames. Now the frames don't have to be touching all the tile, that particular tile, as long as one of the frame that is all touching each other is touching this tile, then you get to put your token on the number 3 when you fulfill it. Some cards have multiple tile or frame colors on it. Some have just numbers. Some have a combination of both the number request and the tiles. And it was just really neat. So we draw from the bag. There's, I think, was 4 tiles on the table at all time, and you pick what you want, and you added it to your own tableau. And then if you fulfill anything, you put your tokens on, and then that gets replenished, and the next person pick the tile they want. And it was so fun. It was so fun. I'm really glad I got a copy of this game for myself now, and then I know how to play it. And yeah, so that was the first game we played. Next, we played Thebes. They were kind of looking around at a game. They say, okay, well, we could pick something that one of us knows how to play so that it's easier. We're not trying to learn, and we can play more games. So I own Thebes, and I've played this one many times, and it's such a cool game. This is Indiana Jones, the board game, minus the exciting adventure portion. This is all about the excavating. So basically, you start in the kind of the upper left corner of the board, where you're going from these different cities, collecting knowledge on a different dig site that you can go and visit. The more knowledge you acquire, the more you'll be able to pull out of the dig. So once you kind of acquire what you want, you'll go down to the bottom right area, and there's all the different sites that you can dig at. And you'll go to the one, and then let's say, like in the picture, you'll notice I had a lot of green knowledge. So I was at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I had 6 knowledge there. Now you can get some general knowledge where we'll apply for every site. Specific knowledge. Excuse me. Wow, it's not even late yet. But anyways, so the more knowledge you have, then you have this dial that you turn and say, okay, so I have 8 knowledge. So you go to the 8 knowledge, and then it has the time frames. Okay, well, how long are you going to dig for? It's like, okay, well, maybe I'll dig for 5 weeks. If you dig for 5 weeks at 8 knowledge, it'll give you, let's say, 4 tokens you can pull from the bag. Maybe I'll dig an extra week then, and so on. Like, you kind of decide what you want to do that way. So let's say I'm pulling 5 tokens from the bag. So then you reach in and you pull out 5 tokens. Now, the first person to go to the dig has a token on the top of the dig, so they automatically get one at a value of 1. So then you pull in and you pull the 5 tokens. Now, some of these tokens are sand. There's nothing on it. Those just go back in if you draw those. But those go back in if you draw those. So slowly, the more people are digging on these sites, some of the artifacts are gone. The sand's still all in there. So your ratio of being able to pull something worthy out of your dig becomes lower and lower. But then hopefully by then you've acquired more knowledge, so you're actually pulling a larger amount of tokens. But it is cool. And then you're going around doing these things, and whoever is in the last position, because if you travel from one city to another city, that costs you 1 week. The outside track is your time, so it'll cost you 1 week. And then you get there and you want to take a card of knowledge that'll give you 2 knowledge. Well, maybe that knowledge takes you 4 weeks to learn, so then you do the 4 week there. And then you kind of move ahead, kind of figuring all this out. And then when you go to the digs, okay, well, I'm going to dig for 6 weeks. So then you move your token 6 weeks. And it's always the person who's in the last position who goes next. So depending on how they do their things, if you've done like an 8-week dig and you're way, way ahead, they might take 2-3 turns before it's your turn again. It has that interesting mechanism that you'll find in Patchwork as well. So that was cool. Next, we played Outlander the series, the board game. So they had the publisher and the designer of this game was at Fallcon, and we ended up going to play this. Now, I got to say, the cards, all the artwork on the cards is based from the movie or the TV series. It looked great. I really liked the artwork of the cards. And I'll show you here, like, because you have your mission card that has like a thing on there, and it kind of tells you the amount of player, what you need to do, and then on the other side I'll tell you what location you need to have and who needs to be in and out and so on. And then you have your own player board that has the picture of Jamie on it, who's like one of the main characters. The cards was super cool. The board to me was bland. It almost looks like it was still prototype. It wasn't done. So, I mean, you had like the background that was neat. You had the middle circle thing that looked very bland and generic. And, like in the story, the Stonehenge is how she traveled through time. I find there was a lost opportunity to kind of utilize that for the circle instead. Another thing, too, is because you have these big meeples that go around and they each start in their own side. And then as you play the game and you're kind of flipping danger card, and then danger will say the green meat or the gray meeple moves forward clockwise 2 or so on. And now these meeples are supposed to be character from this, I think, calling them the green meeple, the blue meat. Like it was a lost opportunity in that situation as well. So the artwork of the cards was great. The mechanism was interesting. So it's a bidding game. The board to me left me flat. That didn't draw me in. And this is it's a competitive cooperative game. And I didn't like that mechanism at all. So basically we're all have to help each other to accomplish the mission. You're all trying to do the different tasks that needs to happen to accomplish the mission. But you're trying to get more score than everybody else at the same time. So be like, okay, well, I could start this one, but I need somebody to help me. And there's no benefit for me to ask for somebody to help me because they could outbid me and then get the benefit of that location, even though we have to work on it, but I wasn't able to do it on my own and they weren't able to do it on their own. That whole thing, I was like, if it seems to me like there should have been some sort of reward system or something that made helping worthwhile, even though it kind of took away like that mechanism for me is like, pick one. Is it a cooperative or is it competitive? That combination just didn't seem to work. It was neat. I'm glad I played it. I'm glad I gave it a try. It was neat to see all the artwork and then the kind of the story, like it has like, hey, well, this one, if you're at this location, then she gets this special ability, and you can kind of exhaust them to do the ability, or you can discard them to do a bigger ability, but then you lose the points at the end. That aspect was interesting, but I think that this game needed more tweaking. before it got published, in my opinion. Then it was auction time. At first, I was thinking maybe I wouldn't attend the auction, but then who am I kidding? It's right there and it's in the same room. That was hard to avoid. And everybody's like, what? You got to do the auction. And then I recently bought a 5x5 Calyx that's sitting at home pretty much empty. So I went to the auction. I got to say, I love how Fallcon runs their auction. Everybody gets a little, like, it's like a stick with a pool noodle on it. And that's your bidding baton. And as you bid, like, they'll bring up a game, and they have multiple auctioneers, so there's no downtime at all. One person will come up, say, okay, auctioning this one, and then they'll start calling out the numbers while the other one has the next game, and you could see what's coming as well. And it's so there's always an auction going on. And then when you're bidding, you just put your stick up, and then they'll start calling out numbers. They're not like, so it'd be like, okay, we're going to start the bid at $5. $5. Okay, so we're going to go then $10, $15. And then when there's a lot of interest, they go by 5. And then when it dwindles down to just a few, they'll be like, hey, 16, 17, 18. And then when you're out, you put your baton down. And the last person to hold their baton up wins the bid, and they get the game. And then if everybody put their baton up at the last time, says they went to 25, everybody put their baton up, says, okay, first one to 24, and then you put your stick back up if you want. It's so much fun. And I mean, at first it started slow. They were bidding on stuff, and it was like, okay, no, I think I'm good. No, I don't really want that one. Like, and the reason I went and I kind of looked at the games before, I wasn't going to do it. I looked at the game, but they had Key Harvest. And I have Keyflower, which is one of my most favorite games. And then I recently got Keeper. And now I'm like, I want the Key series. And then they had Key Harvest. And I was like, I'm going to the auction. So I ended up, and then you're like, so you hold the baton up. It's like, and I hold the baton up, and then you set it down. And I mean, then there was one time where I'm holding the baton up, somebody's talking to me, and I'm listening, not paying attention to the baton anymore. And then ended up buying something. I probably wouldn't have gone quite that high, but it was cool. And it was so well organized, and I'm supporting Fallcon, so it was all good. This is my pile. This I just kept stacking them up on top of each other. So this is what I ended up getting. I'm excited. So I did end up getting my Key Harvest game, so I'm excited for that. The Pillars of the Earth. You know what? I love buying the old games that you hear so much about. It says like, oh, wow, you're going retro. But like, these games are still all brand new to me. I have never played them. So when you get an older game that have like people have talked about, that was a revolutionary game, it was so good. Oh, you got to play Pillars of the Earth. And that was one of them. And I was like, okay. And then as well as Red Dragon Inn. Everybody talks about Red Dragon Inn. So I was like, okay, I think I need that too. So I love to do that. Plus, I got Heart of Crown. My son loves anime. This is my way of trying to like pull them into the hobby a little bit. Just get games that kind of matches the themes they like, just so that they'll kind of play. Aztlan, I know absolutely nothing about it. I just like, okay, it looks cute. I'll bid on that. Minerva. Now, Minerva is new in shrink here. Actually, in the Heart of Crown, that's not new in shrink, but all the cards are still in shrink, so it pretty much is. Minerva was new in shrink, and I've played this one before at a friend's house, and when I was doing an event in Edmonton, and it had a really neat tile lay mechanism, and you're building this kind of path with your tile, and you're trying to maximize that, and it was so cool. And I remember enjoying it, and I was newer into the hobby then. It's kind of like, oh, wow, this is impressive what you can do with this. And I did terrible because I was just learning this game the first time. So I was like, okay, now this was kind of neat. I'll get that. Solaris, I know nothing about. The board looks great. Tom Vassal hates it. But he's not the person that I match my taste with the most, so we'll have to wait and see how I feel about it, but the board does look super cool. So yeah, that was, and then Narcos, you can't see it, Narcos at the bottom. I don't know why I bid on that. It was kind of up there, and I'm like, sure. And we got it. It's 18 plus. So I guess with this one, it's like an economic game, but you each running your own drug cartels. I don't know. And obviously, like, I'm such a goody two shoe for owning these games, but we'll see. So that was the auction. It was neat. It was fun. Had a good time. I'm excited to try these games. So they're all put away in the calyx now. But yeah, so and after that we went back to playing. Now, one game that I've heard of often that I was like, you know what? Okay, no, I do want to try this one. And that was Bunny Kingdom. So we ended up playing it because everybody talks about Bunny Kingdom. Oh, look, it's by Richard Garfield too. Huh, I did not realize that. So basically it's a card drafting. So you get your cards, you look at them, you'll pick two. And there'll be different things on there. There'll either be location, which we see in the picture there. Those are location tiles. And it's like H8. So that's that where that connects. That's the little square you're acquiring with that one. And then B7 and so on. And you would go and put your little bunny on there to show that you collected that. Some cards allows you to put cities. Now, some of the tiles already have cities on there, but then some tiles allows you to go and build a city in a different location. Some cards will allow you to add resources to another location. Now, when I first started playing, I didn't fully understand how this all worked, but you're creating fief, I believe. So you're trying to create clusters of these bunnies. And then the way that it scores is you take all the different resources in this cluster, multiply by the towers, the little caret towers on each of the cities from that cluster. Now, I thought it was, at first I understood it to be all the resources. I was like, oh, great, look, I've got 12 resources here. But they're all the same, so it's different resources. So I thought I had 12, turns out I only had 2, so my score was really not as impressive as I thought it would be. But you do score multiple times. I didn't catch up though, because I was just not keeping those resource cards. I was passing that on, just taking on this, like, okay, I'm going to create this cluster. There's already lots of resource there. That's going to be amazing. And it was not. I think I lost by a full 100 points on this one. Not catching that or understanding that aspect of the rule definitely kind of wrecks my chances, but it was neat. I did enjoy it. You know what? This game reminds me of Chinatown, because you're collecting these things, you're trying to add to it. Like, so it has that Chinatown feel to me, which Foundation of Rome also kind of gives me that same feel. So this is all, to me, in that same category. Now, I've purchased Chinatown recently, so I've got that one. I'm not going to get Foundation of Rome because I find Chinatown kind of scratches that itch for me. Plus, Foundation of Rome is pricey and it's huge. It takes a lot of shelf space. Bunny Kingdom, would I add this and Chinatown? Yeah, possibly. It does have a very similar mechanism, but the drafting, that aspect is a little bit different. There's no bidding or negotiating in this one. It's just kind of getting what you're getting and you just put your stuff in there. While Chinatown, you negotiate. Everything is negotiate to try to get these clusters put together. But it was neat. I really enjoyed that. So I'm just going to show you a close-up picture. You see all these little cities, and then, this is my board. They were mostly one tower cities because I wasn't keeping all the right stuff. I was like, oh no, I'm doing good. Look at all these pieces. I was not doing good, but it was neat. I'm really glad I got to play this. I really enjoyed the play of it, and it was cool. Afterwards, I got to a table where they were playing Planet Unknown. From what I understand, this is a fairly recent Kickstarter. And that was cool as well. And the one guy said, well, I have to leave. Why don't you sit down, play over here, and then you can take my spot. And I was like, oh, okay, sounds good. So everybody has a planet, and then the first player will go to look at this little thing in the middle, and it has all these Tetris-y shape thing into it. And you have like your little pointer that shows what spot is yours. And then they'll rotate to the shape they want. Now, the shape they want, the resources that's on there, and then they'll kind of say, okay, take this one. Then wherever it's rotated, whatever's facing your little pointer, then you have the option of those two tiles. And so you take those tiles and you kind of decide, okay, do I want this one to activate this resource, or do I want this terrain? And then there'll be some different things that'll come up, like the asteroids. Now, asteroids, if you have one of those, it's going to stop that column or that row to score. So you got to get rid of them. And you have these little not drones. What are they? They move around. So anyway, so you got to get those to go and pick up the asteroid to get rid of them in order to clear that row and stuff. It was neat. It was interesting. This honestly really made me think of Terra Mystica or Gaia Project, obviously Gaia Project, just because you're building these things on the map. Now, instead of being the map where everybody is, it's on your own map. You're creating all these things, you're putting these things on. And then as you're doing that, you're scoring up on the track of each of those things. So it has that Gaia Project feel to me. But it's kind of more reserved to your own thing. Now, my planet was like reversed from everybody else. So everybody else had their planet, and every planet had like something specific to it. They had different difficulty level to the planet. I think my planet was a 3 difficulty, so it was a little bit up there. But mine is a big black hole in the middle, and I'm building around. So it was a little bit more tricky to get around with my little rover. That's what it is, a rover, and then trying to build these things, because when you can fill a column or row, you get to score that. Now, for me, because of black hole, if I filled the bottom and the top, then I could score that. But to get across was a little bit challenging. I'm pretty sure I was nowhere near winning this one, but it was neat. So it has like that Barren Park a bit in a way that you put your tiles and you're creating these connections and stuff. And then it has that Gaia Project feel as well. It was cool. I really enjoyed this one. I would definitely want to play this one again. It was neat. Then afterwards, we ended up playing Lost in Really. Now, I've played this one once a long time ago, just by myself, just to learn it. I ended up playing this with a couple of friends of mine that I know quite well. And I also played this with Roberta Taylor, who is the designer of Creature Comfort. So she's local to Alberta. So she was over, and then actually they were playing it, and then they're like, hey, we haven't started yet. We can deal you in. I'm like, sure, yeah, that'd be great. Deal me in. So they did. Roberta did not like this game. It was fun. And this is, it's Cthulhu theme, which I personally really enjoy. It plays a little bit like a trick taking, because you set cards and then you got to play higher. So if it put a 2, then I could play another 2, and then the more of the same card you put on, the card will kind of start activating different abilities. So if 1 2 doesn't really do anything, 2 2 then activates this thing. But if you put a third 2 on there, they'll activate more, and then you can kind of do that to activate these abilities, which is mostly kind of messes with the other players and make them pick up crappy cards. And you're trying to play down your cards, get rid of these, and you have these 5 cards in front of you that's like the pathway or the door or whatever, and you gotta, so in order to not lose, because there's no winners, there's just one loser, and it's whoever's the last man standing. So you're trying to get rid of all these cards. Now, some cards in numerical order, having low cards kind of makes it tricky to play, so that wasn't good. And then you have these, I don't know what the symbol is, like a twig, or like a little twig or a little leaf thing. So you play those, and then you can always play those. It goes on sideways, but it does like a side ability type thing that you can do. Sometimes it'll be like you can swap cards with somebody else, or sometimes it'll be like, you know what, you can take this pile, discard it, so then you don't have to worry about it. Because if you can't play a card on the pile that is growing there, that's where you have to collect a pile, I believe, or like you end up having to pick up something that kind of messes you trying to get rid of all your cards. Let me show you what the cards look like. So they're nice big size tarot card size. The artwork is interesting. It is Cthulhu themed, so but I thought it was an okay game. I enjoyed it. I played it before. It's not a perfect game. No, like it's just a neat little filler. But I enjoy that one, so that was great. Roberta, as I mentioned, did not. Now that's it for day 2. If you want to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram page or name is Mel's_boardgame_room. On Facebook, I am Mel and Friends Board Game Room. My podcast is The Board Game Specialist that I post on every week with my friend Carla. And on YouTube, my YouTube page is Mel's Board Game Room. So be sure to tune in again to catch day 3 and see what happened at Fallcon on day 3. Bye, everybody.